Hello there. I'm Keith from Home Media Minefield, your source of information for films on physical media and home cinema. And welcome tonight to Let's See What's Out There Live, WandaVision special. So, Let's See What's Out There is a podcast that I've been involved in. It's actually was a year old yesterday, so I'm a day late, unfortunately. But it's a podcast where we've been talking about Star Trek, Star Wars, and other science fiction films and television series. So this is a bit of an experiment. I'm crossing the streams, as it were, pun intended, because I'm obviously hosting as Home Media Minefield our Let's See What's Out There live event. Where, as I said, we thought we'd look at the new Disney Plus show, WandaVision, which we will be having a spoiler-filled conversation around the first 2 episodes. I know 3 have actually aired, but the first 2 we're going to talk about today. So there will be spoilers for that, as well as some of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But yeah, if you get a chance, please do check out Let's See What's Out There cast on all good podcasting apps. As I said, we've got a year's worth of material on there. But I want to introduce my team of Avengers for tonight's discussion. So my co-host from Let's See What's Out There, I have from the other side of the pond, from the US, I have Pete Mealy. Welcome, Pete.
Thanks so much.
How you doing?
Are we Avengers or Revengers? Heyo.
That's a good question. We'll find out what people say in the comments, I guess, as to that one. Also joining the team tonight, the lineup from Let's See What's Out There Plus, which is our show where we were covering Star Wars The Mandalorian. I have my co-host from that, Ryan Holloway.
On your left.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going?
On my left, absolutely. although you're on my right on the screen.
I was going to say that did ruin it.
Well, depending on which way you're looking at it, I suppose. But yes, indeed. Now, I know what everybody's thinking out there. They're probably thinking that this podcast is a typical bloke-heavy podcast talking about, 3 men talking about superheroes and whatever. But I'm really pleased to announce that we have a 4th person for this podcast, a special guest, as it were, for this series. And this is our WandaVision comics specialist. We thought we'd better have somebody that knows something about the source material. So welcome, Barbara.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
How you doing? You're welcome. Thanks for coming on. Because, I think, we will talk about later, what our entry points to this show and the MCU were. But I think it's fair to say that most of us come at it from the movies and the TV show now. But my understanding, Barbara, is that you know these comics fairly well as well, right?
Yes. When I was a kid, my mom's parents lived in Indiana, and we were growing up in New York. But every summer we would drive the 12 to 14 hours to go spend a few weeks. And the only way that drive was bearable was my mom would buy tons and tons of comic books. So we basically grew up reading comics.
Wow. Sounds like an awesome childhood reading comics. I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Cool. Okay. Well, no doubt you will be able to sort of, help us with some of our speculations and whatever moving forward with this. As I've already mentioned, we are going to have a spoiler-filled conversation around the first 2 episodes of WandaVision. So filmed before a live studio audience, and don't touch that dial. These are currently streaming on Disney Plus for anyone that wants to see those. We are going to go into our thoughts and feelings on that later in the show. But anybody watching out there, I do encourage you to please add your thoughts and questions in the comments section, and we will obviously come to those. But for the meantime, we have a little bit of a format that we normally run our Let's See What's Out There podcasts from. And it usually starts with a synopsis, which we're calling I Get Emails from a Raccoon, So Nothing Sounds Crazy. And Ryan, I believe
Hello.
you're going to take that away for us, right?
Yeah, let's go for this. So, the synopsis of episode 1, filmed before a live studio audience. So, we're in the 50s, and newlywed couple Wanda and Vision move into the town of Westview. Despite their abilities, they attempt to blend in, and one day they notice a heart drawn on their calendar, but neither can remember what the occasion is. While Vision goes to his job, Wanda decides that the heart must represent their anniversary. Their neighbor Agnes introduces herself to Wanda and helps her prepare to celebrate. Vision is later reminded that he and Wanda are hosting his boss, Mr. Hart, and his wife for dinner that night, which is what the heart actually represented. Wanda and Vision then struggle to hide their abilities while making a last-minute dinner, but as the episode draws to a close, we see that someone is watching WandaVision on a monitor.
Very good. Do you want to do episode 2 as well?
Episode 2, we're going right in. Let's do this.
Let's go for it.
Episode 2, Don't Touch That Dial. So episode 2, we actually move into the 1960s, where Wanda and Vision are now preparing their magic act for a neighborhood talent show. Wanda and Agnes spend the day with the show's planning committee led by Dottie, and Vision attends a neighborhood watch meeting where he accidentally swallows some chewing gum that causes some internal mechanical issues. Wanda befriends another neighbor, Geraldine, and notices more strange things: a yellow and red toy, helicopter in their back, I think it's in their garden, and a voice on a radio that seems to be speaking to her. Thanks to the gum caught in his internal mechanisms, Vision appears to be intoxicated at the talent show and publicly reveals his abilities. Wanda uses her own powers to make this look like simple magic tricks and fixes Vision by removing the gum. They return home, and Wanda becomes visibly pregnant. As the episode draws to its conclusion, they see a strange beekeeper emerging from a manhole on the street.
Nice.
I feel like I was when you're actually reading out the synopsis from this program, I sort of feel like I'm describing my dream to you. And then there was a beekeeper, and then my girlfriend was pregnant.
Indeed. Okay. Well, we will obviously dig into this in a lot more detail.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do, we always do a bit where we just have a look at the behind the scenes key credits for this particular episode. And we've called this section, Who's Doing This to You, Wanda? So the director for this series, and it seems to be that he's directing all 9 episodes, so there's going to be some consistency across this, is director Matt Shackman. Matt has been in the industry for some years. He has been working in film and television, or actually mainly episodic television. He's worked on such shows as The Good Guys TV series, House, the famous TV series with Hugh Laurie. He did a number of episodes of that. He's done some Mad Men, some of the TV show Psych, which my good friend Ian is always telling me to watch because he knows I'll love it. Fargo, Revenge, You're the Worst, The Good Wife, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Game of Thrones, Billions, and that brings us up to WandaVision. So quite a good resume there for television series, quality television series. And as I said, he is our director for this entire season. This episode was written by the showrunner for this series, who is Jack Schaefer. Now, her credits basically go back. She wrote a film called Timer in 2009, which got a little bit of critical acclaim. And she also did the screenplay for The Hustle in 2019. But as I said, she is the showrunner for WandaVision, and she has also contributed to the script of the forthcoming Black Widow movie, which I guess we'll see someday, right? And the second episode was, excuse me, the second episode, I lost my notes. Touch That Dial was written by Gretchen Enders. Now, Gretchen's credits prior to this include the TV series Level Up, Take My Wife, Grace and Frankie, Queen America, and that's what brings us up to WandaVision, which she's also a producer on as well. So that's the behind the scenes credits there. We will talk about more cast and crew as we work through this series, but I think that's enough of me for now. So let's move into the next section.
Nice one, Keith.
No worries. So next we always look at our connections. So I think it's over to you in this case, Barbara.
So far, right, I think the show has been doing a pretty good job of like symphonizing the source material, the stuff from the comics, and then also the what the MCU universe has been creating in terms of a backstory for Wanda. Some of the stuff has been updated, so it works better with the MCU. And I think when we watched the first couple of episodes, Pete had, after the first one right away, he said, "Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna last watching this show," because you kind of just get dropped into this Bewitched / I Love Lucy type sitcom, which if you didn't watch originally, it's not really going to be your thing. And then it really doesn't yet have the MCU feel in terms of like, there's no fights, there's no like action. So like what are the viewers going to be there for? But I think there are a couple of hints like of things going wrong, or like it's not really the idyllic life it seems to be. Like when is it okay to mention like specific things that happen in the show?
Yeah, sure. We've given the spoiler warning, so no problem at all.
Yeah, just spoil away.
Yeah, so like when Mr. Hart starts choking, and it's just this really weird frozen moment, and Vision doesn't seem to know what to do, and his wife, Mrs. Hart, just keeps saying, "Stop it, stop it," and it's just like it has this really, really weird.
That was
feel
freaky,
to it.
wasn't it? That really freaked me out.
Yeah. So, and then in the second episode, as you guys mentioned already, the toy, the voice on the radio, and then everything sort of the color leaches into the scene when it seems like Wanda's pregnant. So I think there should be enough hints for if you're just a straight MCU fan, there's like bigger things coming. Speaking from the comic book background, I was really, really excited when Agnes, who seems to just be the nosy neighbor, she shows up, because she's a really big, important character in Scarlet Witch's background. And it
crazy.
does like this concept.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That sounds cool.
Right, yeah.
Wanda. Yeah, I don't want to say who she actually is just yet, because I don't know if the show is going to go there necessarily. But Wanda and Vision, like having a family life, that is definitely true to the comics. And what I kind of remember is, so the comics, I think, came out like in the 70s, and then there was a new storyline ran in the 80s. So like they were a couple of years old when I was reading them. And they were interesting because of like the Avengers and just being in the Marvel world, but also because they were the only characters that tried to have like a quote unquote normal life. So it wasn't necessarily about them being mutants or all powerful and always having to save the world. They always had this kind of like day to day, like, the joke in the beginning, Vision, how does eggs and black coffee and bacon sound? And he says, "Well, I don't eat anything." Like that's not something that really gets addressed in other characters in the comics. So, Yeah, that was the draw when I was a kid.
Cool. No, that's helpful, and obviously as we go through this series as well, we'll I'm sure there will be more, and you'll be able to sort of fill in some of those blanks for us as well. So thanks for that. We're also going to look at connections that this has to the Marvel Cinematic Universe itself. Pete, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll kick off
things
here. Yeah, I can kick off. So the first thing that I noticed was the Stark toaster ad that's in the first episode feels really reminiscent to me of something from Captain America: The First Avenger, where Tony Stark's doing the presentation at the World's Fair, and the car goes wrong. And I thought they were sort of building up something like that, where they're looking at that toaster for a long time, and I felt like, oh God, it's going to explode. But it didn't. But anyway, so I'm mentioning that because it sort of all felt reminiscent of the Tony Stark flying car commercial from Captain America: The First Avenger. Let's see. The cooking, like Barbara mentioned in the very first episode, is a little bit of a callback or reminiscent of one of the first times we see Wanda and Vision together in the MCU, where Vision is trying to cook paprikash to make Wanda feel better in Captain America: Civil War.
That's right.
Yeah, that's actually one of the first things they do together is cook together, equally disastrously. I also I went back and rewatched or tried to rewatch part of this from Age of Ultron, but in the workplace scene, Vision says, "No, I'm completely made out of organic material." And I was like, "Is he?" But yes, I think that body is organic material, right? Which was why it was so important in Age of Ultron, that it was being built a combination organic and synthetic body, because let's not forget this body that Vision is in is the body that Ultron designed for himself. And then sort of small, but noteworthy, or I took notice of it, is that the helicopter that crashes in the backyard is red and gold, which is the Iron Man colors. Now I know,
Well
I think
spotted.
that's not actually going to be significant in the story, but there it is. That's what I got.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice little Easter egg all the same, even if you know, not everything necessarily has to tie into the plot. Sometimes it's just you know, a visual reference or whatever, and I think that's a really well spotted one. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Any more on that for anyone?
That's what. Yeah. What else did people notice?
Do you know what? This is terrible, but I feel like I was. I don't really even feel like I was massively, especially with the first episode. I know we'll talk a bit more about this, but I was so I was kind of just staring at it for a long period of time, trying to get my head around it. So I wasn't noticing a lot of stuff. But it's interesting that those little things are there, but it's something that I'm going to have to be looking out for in the future, because I think as this unfolds, I'm sure I'll notice more. But Keith, I know that you'll have noticed some more.
Well, not massively. By the way, hello Dan Hadley. He's just put up in the chat there. Put up on the screen. Dan Hadley from the Space Book, which is a vodcast and live stream that I've had the pleasure of joining a few times. They do some really good work there. So thank you, Dan, for tuning in. Thought I'd give you a quick plug. But yeah, one of the things I did notice about the helicopter, I really like your observation, Pete, about the Iron Man colors. But I believe it did also have the logo of the organization SWORD.
Yeah, it had the logo, but I don't know that I didn't mention it because I don't think SWORD has come up yet in the MCU.
Oh, right. Wasn't okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I might be wrong here. I thought it came up at the end of Spider-Man with Samuel L. Jackson in the sort of end credits thing. Or maybe I've got that wrong. I'm not too sure.
No, you might be right. Yeah.
Let us know in the chat, folks.
Yeah, I'm lost on that. Probably. I'm like, yeah, probably.
Okay, but no, I mean you're absolutely right, Pete. Maybe it hasn't come up yet, but I know Sword is a sort of another one of these organizations that in the fictional universe of the Marvel comics, but also the MCU, like it was with Shield. I think the acronym stands for something slightly different to what it actually does in the comic books, though, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct.
There you go.
I love that. I love it. Yep, that's correct. I like having Barbara there to sort of go no or yeah.
Exactly. That's it. That's important.
It is. It is. It's better to have someone live just go no.
Yes.
Sorry, Barbara, go on.
I'll try not to be too monotone or monosyllabic, but I really want people to be able to watch the show and have it unfold for them, because again, like I read these comics, I think like 20 plus years ago. So things like seeing the sword symbol in the back of my brain was sort of like, oh my gosh, they're going to do that part, even if I was like a little rusty about what exactly it was. So yeah, I don't want to blow it up too much at this point, but the beekeeper at the end.
Yeah, that was probably my fault. I was going to say that probably is more in the speculation section or the prediction section. So I'm probably, as usual, as I do on the podcast, I'm probably jumping ahead. So
we're just so excited, Keith. It's fine.
There you go. That's what it is. Yes, excited. Nothing to do with nerves at all. Pure excitement. Maybe on that, if that's it for the sort of MCU references that we've actually spotted in these 2 episodes, maybe that is a good time to move to our next section, which is I could do this all day, which is our predictions and speculation part. Now, obviously, the 3rd episode has already aired, so I guess we could try and sound really clever, like, I think next week is going to be in the 70s in color, but but no, anything anything in particular that came up with you guys that I'm sure with you, Barbara, there must be loads if you're connecting it to the comics, but any particular predictions as to where this might be going and what's going on here?
Well, I'll start with the idiot's take on it, because that's something I can do very well.
I was going to say you're stealing my thunder now.
And I'll just go broad sweeps here. I've not watched episode 3 yet, but they're building up that like Wanda and Vision are trapped in some sort of mental cage or something is what I'm getting from it. And that so there's going to be some sort of sinister plot where they're under some sort of spell or mental cage, and they're going to have to break out of it. There we go. Broad strokes.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, I'm a bit like that as well. I'm guessing that there is something that they want from Wanda, and this is the only way to extract it, because she would never ever give it up. So I'm guessing there's something in her memory, or there's some power that they need from her to do something. And again, like you, Pete, it's very broad, but I'm guessing this has all been created to extract something from her, whether that's information or power, I don't know, but that seems to be the potential motive.
So with that theory, how do you think Vision fills in? Like, why do you think he's there?
Oh, I like this. I like this line of questioning, because I've not thought about that at all.
Because he's dead. Like, this is right? WandaVision follows in the timeline, the MCU timeline. So
Yeah, no, that's the thing
he's
is
died
that
twice now at this point.
yeah, this is true. This is true.
Mm.
So I guess with it, in which case he's there to because he's the only person that could potentially get the information from her.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what I'm sort of thinking there is I agree with you guys that there's obviously some, you know, probably nefarious organization or something on the outside trying to sort of get to Wanda to get some information or something out of her. But I think the reason we're seeing Vision and the reason that everything is kind of so bizarre in the manner that it is because I think Wanda herself is creating this reality to try and, if you like, shield, no pun intended, shield from giving up whatever information or that's trying to be, you know, retrieved from her. And I think that this is all a complete construct in her own mind. You know, maybe she grew up in Sokovia watching, you know, reruns of sitcoms from the you know, the 50s through the 70s or whatever, and you know, she's kind of constructing this to try and you know, not deal with the reality that she's in, which is that she lost her brother, she lost Vision, so she lost two people she cares about, and now somebody is trying to manipulate her in this bigger story, and this is her way of trying to block it out, I think. But that's just my take on it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's true. Because also, I mean, in terms of timeline, I mean, I guess because he's got within the TV show, he's got the Mind Stone.
Yes.
So presumably, it would be she's sort of, if she's manipulating it, is taking it back, you know, before. I don't know. I think it's interesting that there's a lot of things at play, and because I think the second episode was just so important, I think, for me on this one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that, you know, there's loads of weird stuff happening, you know, we're getting color bleed into the black and white,
Literally bleeding.
And also, I mean, you know, which I thought was quite clever, they had the in that second episode, they had the Beach Boys Help Me Rhonda playing on the radio, and it turned into Help Me Wanda, and was kind of what broke her out of that reality that she'd sort of set for herself. So yeah, I just sort of thought, that's all very clever, but yeah, I don't know. I've probably missed loads of things though, but this is just kind of broad strokes here.
And also, I may sound naive here, but she's been talking with an American accent, right?
Yeah, actually. So she's been talking with this sort of like stylized 1950s housewife accent, except for when, like we mentioned, the freaky scene where the guy starts choking on dinner. She drops her accent when she says Vision help him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so that could lead, I mean, that again though, this could lead into many different things. I think, Keith, like you say, it could be that she's just blocking everything out, and if she's speaking this American accent, she's also kind of blocking out the fact that she, you know, may have had a twin brother, and blocking out where she's actually from.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing has been, you know, we'll get onto our feelings and whatever shortly, but this whole thing in terms of the production is, you know, is so stylized that obviously everything is intentional here, and you know, right the way down to the production design and whatever. And I am sure that it's absolutely littered with Easter eggs, many of which we haven't picked up on at all. I mean, you know, but as we said, with the sort of Tony Stark colors for the helicopter, the red and gold, not necessarily everything has to connect to a bigger plot as such. It's like this whole date, the 23rd of August, which they have, and I know a lot of people are sort of theorizing as to whether that actually means something. I have to say, for me, I thought of it as just being that the MCU started with Iron Man in 2008, so '08, and there's been 23 films in the MCU. So that's what I think the '08 23 is. But
it's a lot of tinfoil and red yarn to get to that point, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, it might be
actually,
more
it's a
clever.
pretty relevant point.
Oh, love it. I absolutely
speaking
love
of
it.
Easter eggs, there's a huge one.
What?
We haven't seen
Brilliant.
episode 3 yet, so.
Oh, right.
You see, this
Okay.
is exactly why when we were putting this together, I said I really want somebody on that knows the comics, and so happy to have you on, Barbara.
Yeah, it's literally makes the difference.
So yeah, all right. Well,
yeah,
maybe,
it's really
there
fun
is
hearing the discussion and sort of like, yeah.
It's like you're from the future.
Yeah,
You're from the
indeed.
future, and you're going, oh, you know, listen to them talking about lockdown like they're ever going to come out of it.
Yeah, I'm only from a week in the future, so I can tell you a lot about what I think is going to happen next week, but beyond that, I'm clueless. So listen, if anybody out there has any comments and wants to join in the conversation here, please put them in the chat section. And if you're finding some value in this, please go ahead, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and find Let's See What's Out There, the podcast at LSWOT Cast on all good podcast apps. I thought I'd put another little plug in there before we push on. Okay.
Excellent.
Nice work.
And any other theorizing from you guys?
I think for me, it's just too early.
Yeah.
Well, what does everybody think about Wanda being pregnant? What do you think is going on there?
See, now I'm like, well, it's obviously something then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying from the female perspective, like it's a really interesting part of the story.
Right. Yeah.
Keith,
Well,
Keith,
I'm
why don't you
wondering.
take that one?
Well, no. I'm just wondering if this is part of again some outside manipulation that's going on. I mean, it's not a sort of big stretch for me to come up with that one, I know. But yeah, I really don't know where that's going, and I kind of like the fact that I don't know where that one's going in many respects.
Yeah,
So.
I know what you mean. I think if these TV shows are kind of playing out, I mean, I sort of mentioned it at the beginning, but if it is playing out like a dream, then it could be that it's her mind working things out that she wanted with Vision. So
Yeah,
this relationship her relationship never got as far as she wanted it to with Vision. So these things are sort of playing out in a kind of subconscious way. So we're kind of seeing her subconscious played out. And then again, maybe that's someone from the outside needs that to manipulate her into giving up something.
Yeah. Well, and also, I don't know whether again, I'm sure that this is intentional and going to be something, but we've had lots of hexagons in this, like on the TV logos and etc. And obviously we see the guy that comes up from the cover in the street.
I didn't even put that together, Keith.
Well, there were bees or something around him.
Right.
Either flies or bees. He had one of those nets over his hat and whatever. And I'm just wondering whether this is all kind of like linking to something to do with another organization within Marvel that's that's because that logo's coming up quite a bit in all of the episodes. And
so maybe Wanda's like the queen bee, and they just want to breed more people with her powers.
oh wow, listen to that. Oh, what
There
a bit
you go.
like,
There's a
well,
prediction.
a bit like her origin in the MCU was they were using the which stone was it? The oh god, is it the Mind Stone? Wasn't it? At the end of the Captain America credits, they were using the Mind Stone. I've forgotten the character's name now, but he was using that to, because he said it was the time of they couldn't say mutants, obviously, because they were in legally they couldn't do that because Fox had that at that point. So they were saying it was about the time of miracles, wasn't it? So
so there you go. They're breeding an army of wonders.
Well, let's be honest. She's one of the most powerful.
Yeah, exactly. A discovery of Scarlet Witches.
Yeah. So that could certainly do something. What's his
name? The trouble is, though, now when I predict something, I'm waiting. What's that?
What was the guy's name? Was it Stoker or Stoker or something? His name is on the watch in the commercial.
Stroker.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the Hydra logo was also on that watch, wasn't it? In the commercial.
Oh yeah, I missed that. Yeah, we should have mentioned that in the connections.
Pointing at 8 and between the 2 and 3 as well. So
now something I'm noticing is that if I predict something, I'm now waiting to see if Barbara gives me any sort of signal. I'm on the right track.
Difficult to tell with avatars, isn't
it? So now it's like that one of those. I think it was The Next Generation. Sorry to talk Star Trek, but when your man was from, well, he said he was from the future, so they were second guessing everything, and it turned out he was from the past. Do you remember that episode?
I do. It's with that great character actor
who was in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah, he's been in like everything. Yeah, and that was a real fun episode. Yeah.
If you remember the episode, put the name in the comments.
We really are crossing the streams, aren't we? Well, listen, if there's no more theorizing for the moment, I think we want to really get into the bit that we all really want to talk about, which is where we assemble, the Avengers assemble, and we talk about basically our feelings, thoughts on the episode, any successes, nitpicks, etc. Well, Barbara, would you like to go first on this?
Sure.
Sorry, I'm going to hop in here.
So I did.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Hopping in real quick to say that it was a matter of time.
You're going to mansplain to me?
Right no, I'm not. I wanted to go back to Star Trek.
You wanted to answer the question that was supposed to be for the listeners?
Yeah, that's the one. That's what I wanted to do. Season 5, episode 9, A Matter of Time. Everyone should watch it. Thank you. Goodbye.
Well, thank you. And that was absolutely worth it just for that.
Thanks, yeah. Anyway, Barbara.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mute.
I did grow up watching Bewitched. I loved Bewitched, probably in part because I think the main character's name was Barbara. I can't remember her last name. And I did watch some I Love Lucy. The second episode for me wasn't super different in terms of the feel, although I think it is supposed to be progressing like through the decades. But I really loved like all the little details. I think Pete mentioned Wanda had like a stylized 1950s housewife accent, and that scene where Agnes comes over with the dinner and she's trying to like butt in and help, but Wanda keeps her hands like on her waist, pushing her out the door, and she just keeps like spinning. It's like really graceful but funny and very apt for the time. I really liked all the little nuanced moments. I think there was another one in the Toastmaster commercial where the female model who's, I don't know, augmenting the picture for the commercial. I'm not like, she didn't really do very much. She just looks straight at the camera for a few seconds too long. And like that to me was another little nod. Like there's something going on here. It's not just what you think, like what you see in front of you. So I will say, like from the comic book side, the plot lines feel kind of compressed and things are happening very quickly, like much more quickly than I remember them happening in the comics. But I guess, you know, that's one of the things about translating from written material to television. It's like you have to give the audience more upfront. So, but yeah, I'm enjoying it overall.
And that's kind of one of the things, again, with the adaptations that they've done for a lot of the MCU. You know, they've taken obviously the characters and some of the iconography and some plot points and used titles and all this sort of thing. But, you know, they've not necessarily followed the comic books verbatim. And you know, that's obviously, I guess, from your point of view, knowing the comics, probably quite exciting because, yes, there are things that will completely gel with the comics, but there may be things that take a completely different route and you know, surprise you completely with this, right?
Yeah, I think one of the parts, like I mentioned before, that I'm really enjoying is that it's definitely nodding to the source or winking at the source material, but staying true within the MCU universe that it's like currently supposed to be part of. So, you know, like Wanda and Quicksilver were supposed to be like, they volunteered to be experimented on with one of the Infinity Stones for Hydra. Their powers were definitely very muddled in the comics too for a really long time. So I like that it's not like, you know what, we're just going to write a totally spontaneous, different backstory for this character.
Actually, a question for you on that point. Obviously, there's always been this somewhat gray area with these characters because, you know, we had our successful X-Men franchise from Fox, as it was there, and they'd obviously dealt with the character of Quicksilver in that, played by Evan Peters in that, but because obviously Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were part of the Avengers in the comics, there was always that sort of you know, gray area, so that they came up with some sort of agreement where, as long as they didn't reference Magneto and use the term mutant, that they could indeed use those characters. So we ended up sort of having two versions of Quicksilver, obviously one only lasting for Age of Ultron, and then you know, getting killed in that. Obviously we're going to spoil the hell out of this stuff, as I've warned. But do you think what I'm getting to with this is, do you think that now Disney own Fox, and obviously the X-Men franchise has come to an end as far as the Fox stuff goes, and there may be plans to bring the X-Men into the MCU, do you think that this might be kind of a way of doing that through this character?
I think it would definitely be an opportune time for the MCU, but I don't think really at this point they have it fleshed out enough that they could do it without it feeling like a Star Wars 1, 2, 3 semi reboot that like really doesn't sit well with everybody. Does that make sense, that comparison?
Yeah. No, I like it. Yeah, me and Ryan.
What's wrong with what do you mean?
Yeah. What part of Star Wars didn't sit well?
Yeah. What do you mean? Like, I love every second of it.
Well,
just to be clear,
you know, 6, 7, 8 are are the canon, right? And then
Mhm.
I think that Kevin Feige
I think you mean 4, 5, 6,
and
not the mansplain.
Disney have managed to set to like what I don't. Yeah. Okay. I'm not so good at keeping the sequence of the Star Wars to get clear. Like I know 6, 7, 8 was when I was born. Those
No, that
are
was
the
4, 5,
original
6.
films. Oh my God! Right, 4, 5, 6, the ones in the middle.
Yeah.
Don't you love live?
Oh,
Don't you love live podcasts?
Pete's
I love-
revenge.
I mean,
what
I started it, to be fair, like for sure. So,
but to be fair, your point still stands.
Yes, your Barbara's point is absolutely valid.
no, I mean, I would be really, really happy if Disney decided to continue expanding the universe, but I think they do have to be really careful about like which parts are they going to pursue, because people, I think, very easily could get a bad taste in their mouths if they try to rewrite too much of like
I think that's
the
right.
past. So
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts from you guys on that point?
I think it's
Pete.
sorry. Well, I was going to say that Wanda is the natural crossover here to bring X-Men or mutants into the MCU. And I think as someone who my first reaction when you said that Fox had a very successful X-Men movie run was like, ooh, what do you mean very successful? Because I feel like Fox had a real problematic run there with the X-Men universe. And so I would love to see it come more under the Marvel universe, because I think Marvel has just consistently done great work with this franchise. And so like the amount of forethought that's going in, it makes it worthwhile for me that just everything come into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think that even the bottom 5 movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe are on par with the top 5 movies of the X-Men universe.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I have to say, when I said successful, I mean, I think the actual X-Men films themselves, for the most part, were good. But not to get off topic. Sorry. What I was also meaning was I thought that Evan Peters' version of Quicksilver in those films was actually quite successful, and maybe more so than the adaptation in Age of Ultron. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I always kind of liked Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, if I'm honest. I think that I'm going to probably be wrong, but I'm guessing. I'm just trying to think of the timeline. We saw Evan Peters' version first, didn't we?
Oh yeah, by years.
Yeah, by quite a few years. So I think that by that time, people had kind of got it into their heads that that's who played the character, that's who he was. So I think when we got to Age of Ultron, that was always going to be a little bit problematic and a little bit jarring. But I always kind of liked. But I mean, again, Keith, I don't want to go too off topic. I mean, with the X-Men films, I think I liked the first 2. So for me, Quicksilver.
I think you should watch X2 again.
Oh, really?
Oh,
so
God.
I like the first one.
Yeah, first one in Logan.
The first one's great. I like Days of Future Past as well, but that's obviously we're going into a whole nother.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
But here's my thing. Here's my sort of theory with, again, I should have left this in the speculation section perhaps, but one of my thoughts on this is obviously the first 3 phases or whatever we've had of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was basically, as they're now calling it, the Infinity Saga, which was what they had from sort of 2008 through to 2019 with the 23 films or whatever it was. But I'm wondering, looking at the just knowing the titles of some of the things that we've got coming up in this new phase, in this phase 4. There's a Doctor Strange movie called The Multiverse of Madness, and I'm wondering whether that's going to be kind of where, and this is what WandaVision is kind of setting up. I'm wondering whether this one will be more about multiverses, and so you could get different versions of the same character played by different actors, and actors that have maybe played them in an disconnected movie, let's talk properly here, a disconnected movie at some other point or whatever. Am I crazy, or do you think that's a possibility?
Do you mean that this series itself is kind of multiverses?
No, I'm just wondering whether the entire Marvel phase
Right,
4,
okay.
or whatever we're going to call it, be it films, TV shows, and whatever, is going to explore this concept, which obviously they've done in comics for a long time now, of the multiverse. And we're going to have, multiple versions of characters that have already been established, and we have sort of slightly different twists on them coming from a slightly different universe and whatever, because this is this has already sort of been implied, hasn't it, in like Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and stuff like that, right?
Well, they straight up did it in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. They had like 17 different Spider-Men.
Exactly, which was a great film.
Yeah, which was great and played by different actors, right? So I think, it's they could totally do that. I don't know that I don't know. It feels like you're sort of asking this question about would they ever swap out and go back to the other actor to play Quicksilver? And I don't know. Do they need to do that?
I'm not suggesting that.
Well, I don't.
What are you suggesting, Keith?
I'm just wondering whether this, this is all going to connect to whether the next phase of the MCU is going to deal with multiverse. That's basically my question.
It seems to me like an organic storyline, right? All the Marvel, the first couple of phases built up to the Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, right? It was this like really big threat of Thanos and ending everything, and they managed to get through that part and like come back from it. But now these Infinity Stones still exist in the world, so it would be interesting to see how the keepers of each stone bear the powers, and maybe like how do they affect the world. I think the multiverse quote unquote explanation, it would be wise for Marvel to keep that in their back pocket as a like, oh yeah, that other Spider-Man, that was a different multiverse. I mean, and I might be thinking this way because in the comics, whenever there was a conflicting storyline, they would say, oh yeah, that was Earth 781, not Earth 616, which is where like most of the storyline, mainstream storylines exist.
Yeah, this is where it kind of worries me. I mean, I'm going to come from a slightly different angle and probably be slaughtered for it. In that Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, I thought was good. That was it. It was good. I didn't lose my webbing over it, and I think that I'm sort of worrying that everything I hear is like the next Spider-Man movie is going to be multiple Spider-Man. Doctor Strange is going to be about multiverses. And it's kind of like, it just feels to me like multiverses is just going to be the new toy to play with. And I kind of already feel over it because it's all I seem to be reading about when it comes to the next phase. And yeah, it's really not something that I'm massively looking forward to. And I think it is because of that potential where it just helps them get out of any storyline. Oh yeah, that was a different universe, so we're going to ignore that because audiences didn't like it, and it's just going to give them a kind of get out of jail free card. I think that's what Barbara was saying as well, but I kind of that's how it feels to me, and I'm not massively keen on them all going into multiverses, if I'm honest.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, this is
the sort of the hint in the title of the Doctor Strange movie, I think, is more related to or referring to that he has the reality stone, not that. I think it's like too big and too complex of an idea if everybody, like all the Marvel stories from now out are going to be, oh, we're in this multiverse or that multiverse. Like, it's too much.
Yeah, no, totally. I think it makes sense for Spider-Man because that's kind of I've forgotten what the deal is with Sony, but obviously the Spider-Verse was Sony, so it kind of makes sense for them to go in that direction with that one, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, DC have already sort of done this as well in their television, Arrowverse or whatever. They've had the whole,
that's it as well, Keith. Like that's what we're hearing with Justice League. It's like, oh, we're gonna have Ben Affleck, we're gonna have Michael Keaton, we're gonna, and it's like everything seems to be about multiverses now. And
well, I think it's because
I think I'm saying I'm sort of already over it.
Yeah, I think it's because it's something that's kind of, before that was always a thing in literature and, comic books and, was always sort of accepted by that sort of esoteric fan group that, kind of got that sort of thing. But I think now, because so many movies and video games and TV shows and whatever are doing it, it's becoming sort of more widely acceptable. And it seems to be a thing that, many franchises are now sort of hanging on to sort of, like you said, get them out of canon and continuity errors and all of that sort of thing, whether it be Star Trek or DC or Marvel or, it's even been rumored Star Wars, but I don't.
I was going to say Star Wars is the only one I'd want to see a multiverse from, because then we can completely ignore. Sorry, I shouldn't get so heated. I'm sorry.
Check out let's see LSWOT plus for our Star Wars coverage. Yeah, on all good podcasts. Put another plug in there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool. All right. Well, anything? I mean, what about you guys in terms of any other? What were your feelings and thoughts and nitpicks and that sort of thing?
I mean, I think the thing is that because I think you and I have spoken about this before, Keith. Like I definitely come at this show from a fan of the movies, of the MCU films, and I have to admit I've not really read a lot of the comics, and that's something I think with lockdown I have plenty of time to rectify, so that's good. But I think having not come from that comic book space and having actually not really read up much about this TV show in the build-up, I did find the first episode a real struggle. And, by the end of it, I kind of got the feeling that there was something else to it. But I did find that first episode a struggle. And it is a show that I think it's difficult. But I think they're just starting to show me enough now with episode 2 that I'm going to get through it. Because when I was watching it, I was very much thinking this is kind of like watching Lost versus Pushing Daisies. It's got that kind of there's a bigger picture, and I'm sure there's a plan. Unlike Lost, I'm sure there is a plan on this one. But also it had that Pushing Daisies kind of quirkiness to it, which I really liked. So I'm a fan. I'm definitely in. But I do have to admit I struggled at first. Even though like Barbara, I loved Bewitched. I loved that show. So I did really enjoy the very well observed nature of that episode. And I think particularly when I went back and watched it again, I really enjoyed it. But I'd say it was a struggle at first. I don't know what you thought, Keith.
Yeah. Well, I've got to be honest. Yeah, I've here we are doing a vodcast on it now, but I watched the first episode and I was sort of halfway through the first episode and was just thinking, what the hell is this? This is, awful. What's going on? Vision. I saw Vision die twice, as Barbara rightly said. And
now he's dying again. Ba-boom.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. And in terms of sitcoms, I kind of grew up with things like Family Ties and Happy Days and whatever, and I wasn't particularly familiar with the Dick Van Dyke Show and I Love Lucy and all that, so I don't think we necessarily got many reruns of those in the UK.
Not
But
as much, not as much as Bewitched and things like that.
but once the little glitch happened in that episode, and once you got to the end credits and it went from it's because I'll be honest, we went from having at least 2 Marvel movies every year to over a year now since we've seen anything. So seeing that updated Marvel Cinematics, Marvel Studios logo come up at the beginning, I was quite excited. And then, of course, they went from that to a 4:3 black and white aspect ratio, and then the sound went from surround to mono, and then we ended up in this like weird 50s sitcom, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And to start with, I wasn't enjoying it, and then by the time I watched the second, because I stuck with it, particularly when I saw those again colorful end credits with the RGB TV stuff and whatever, and got into the second episode and really then got charmed by it, no pun intended. And now, well, so into it that here we are.
Yeah, exactly. I
look forward to it every week.
I love that it's different. I love that it's bonkers. I love now that there's little things I can look out for, and there's this bigger picture. And I went from that first episode being like, I don't know if I can do this, to I cannot wait for the next episode. And that's a great thing. That's a great thing to have, and especially as you say, with us having this kind of barren time, there's no movies to be had. And so it's great to have this show that you look forward to every week. I think it's so I really went from what the hell to this is a breath of fresh air, and it was no, I'm very excited about it.
What about you, Pete?
I think that I was sort of where Ryan was, and you were, or I don't think I was as anti as you were. I think Keith. I think I made it through the first episode, and I was always just sort of thinking all through the first episode, is this really what this show is? Like, is this it? And so it. I will say that when we got to the end of the first episode, and we sort of touched the remote, and I was like, oh no, wait, there's 8 minutes left. There's 8 minutes left. There's going to be something amazing in these last 8 minutes. And then it was just 8 minutes of credits. I was like,
yeah, what was that about? What is that about?
It was like, I guess like streaming services, they record everything in 10 languages. And so they've got to put in credits in 10 different languages with 10 different sets of crews. And, I'm all for it. I'm not saying these people shouldn't get their due. But I will say that I was mildly disappointed that that's where it ended. And I did not get as much as I thought. Like Barbara said, I turned to her after the end of the first episode, and I said, I don't think I can watch this show. And she told me to shut up and wait. We've now watched the second episode, and I am shutting up and waiting. But I will tell you, my outlook has not changed. Okay. There's going to have to be a lot here if this is going to rank up there for me. Okay. But I'm shutting up.
Oh, interesting. This is why I'm so glad we don't discuss these things first before we go live with this. This keeps it fresh. So that's cool. What about you, Barbara? I mean, were you on board straight away, or were you skeptical when it started?
Well, I mean, as I've said, like I like that it is supposed to have this feel of other sitcoms that have been part of popular culture for a long time. And I think in terms of the relationship between Wanda and Vision, I actually think that there's so much material, like potential material there, that they could have done a full movie out of it. But I say that without having actually thought through, like, how would they expand on all of that stuff exactly for 90 minutes to 2 hours. So I guess I think what I'm going to expect is that with these 9 episodes, it's going to be sort of just a bridge to like keep the Marvel universe moving forward. And maybe they're just sort of trying out a different format, because Wanda and Vision's relationship is so much about their personal connection, and not actually too much about their abilities, their superpowers. So it's a way to address that, but keep it sort of fun and light and move it forward pretty quickly.
And is the comic book, is this something where there's quite a few volumes, or is this something that's quite short?
There were, I think, 2, maybe 3 runs where that specifically addressed Wanda and Vision's characters and relationship, and they do exist inside of the Avengers comic universe. I think maybe they had a couple of like sort of feature comics that were just them, but it's not a long run at all.
Okay. I was wondering if it was going to be some sort of Walking Dead, volumes and volumes and volumes, and it never ends until it has to.
I'm actually wondering whether yeah, there you go. Whether these are obviously 30-minute episodes, to mirror the sitcom type feel. We've got 9 episodes, and we're 3 in, and it's no spoiler that we know we're already up to the 70s. So I'm just wondering if it'll take us up to the 2000s or whatever in terms of a comedy show format. But then I'm wondering if the last few episodes will then almost become like a multi-part movie, and it'll be it'll lead to some sort of big action climax thing towards the end. I mean the one good thing is all of these episodes, the whole lot, have been directed by Matt Shackman. So we have a WandaVision, a one vision of director there. So I think they're trying different things out, but I think it will be cohesive at the end of it. What do you think? Sorry about that bad pun. I only realized it as I was saying it.
I loved it, and I'm sure others will too. But I think wasn't the show was interrupted by COVID, wasn't it? The filming.
Well, what was interesting is I think they filmed. Yes, it was, but I think they filmed some of it during COVID. And that second episode in particular, when they were doing the magic show. Did you notice that it was only like sort of one person per table, and they were all like, easily 2 meters apart from each other? And it just kind of, it's weird. It's one of those things where, because of the real life situation of social distancing and those rules, it kind of added to the weirdness of the episode, if you know what I mean.
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to watch that again, because I didn't really even, I guess I'm now so used to social distancing that it just looked normal.
Yeah, they were very spaced out on the tables. And the other thing that was really weird as well, and I'm sure again this was intentional based on what happens to Wanda by the end of the episode, but they kept saying this phrase, for the children. Everything they were doing in the Westview community was for the children and all this. Yet we've not seen any children at all up to that point.
From I guess expecting.
That for the children is something like I'm not really sure what they're doing there. I think from the comics background it could make sense, but there's a little creepy in the like big picture.
Yeah. No, it was a bit. I mean, I'm getting and I'm sure again this is intentional and whatever, but there's this whole sort of Stepford Wives vibe to all of this as well, isn't there?
Mm.
You know, Pleasantville, Truman Show, you know, those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
Especially with when they introduced that who's like the woman in the neighborhood that is sort of the queen bee, and the neighbor says, "Oh, we have to make sure we impress her," right? That whole thing was kind of weird too.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest, Agnes is quite weird. You know, played wonderfully.
Though.
Yeah. But yeah, she's great. But you know, I do feel like the actors, they have incredibly good comic timing in all of this, but likewise I think it's been written to be ironic, right? Because you know, it's like boomer humor, isn't it? It's not really funny as such. You're just kind of laughing at the ridiculousness of it all, right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of, I completely agree, but I think that's by the end of the second, actually midway through the second episode, it was kind of what was charming about it. I was kind of enjoying that kind of kitsch, old school silliness. Yeah, like I said, I was hooked by the beginning of the second episode, and yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like I probably shouldn't be laughing at bits. First episode, I spent staring at it like a dog who's been shown a card trick, and the second episode, yeah, I was much more kind of like spotting things and just enjoying it. But I'm in, you know, I'm in at the moment.
Well, I must admit, from a production point of view, I love the fact that you know, apparently I've since read that the first episode literally was filmed in front of a live studio audience. They did one of those multicam setups with an audience there, and that wasn't a canned laughter track. That was actually an audience laughter track. So you know,
that one first, then I guess.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because I think the second one wasn't, and that was obviously put in afterwards, the laughter, and obviously the social distancing thing by that point. But what was the other thing? Yeah, I want to ask you about this, Barbara, because I think this might be quite. I'm just looking at this. These are obviously, you know, set up as nostalgia of the time, but I just wondered, one of the things that struck me about both of the commercials, both the, you know, the Howard Stark toaster one, you know, with the red light there. I don't know if anybody noticed that, but the light blinked red even though it was black and white.
Yeah.
And obviously the watch one with the you know, the guy that experimented on Wanda, you know, the Hydra guy and whatever, but how sexist those commercials were, and I just wondered whether that's just me sort of picking up on that in the world we live in today, or you know, what your feeling was about the sort of sexism that was implied in those ads.
Well, I mean, I think that unfortunately because of the eras where the show is taking place so far, that sexism is very much a part of the fabric of the setting.
Sure.
But I do think that they're using it in intelligent ways, because another like big potential plot hint that like I don't want to give away just yet. If you think about, like, again in the 50s, like who were the people who, you know, were blue collar, well to do, blah blah blah. Like there's some other ones that don't really stand out there, and I wonder if Marvel is making that decision to cast those specific actors because they are either trying to be inclusive, or because it's a hint at a larger plot point. And Keith, I think he said this earlier, and Pete called it like connecting too many strings or something. He had a funny expression about it. But Yeah, at least one of the other characters there is somebody who, in your quote unquote typical like 1950s white American sitcom, would not fit in, but that character is there because it could be a much larger plot point. So I guess I'm willing to forgive the sexism of the commercials because they are very sort of tongue in cheek, and it's like just helping get people more immersed in the specific era that each episode is taking place, right? Like it was Stark Industries. Okay, that makes sense. That would be a commercial. And of course, there would be a woman with her lipstick on, helping, like I said earlier, I guess she was there to like augment the attractiveness of the toaster. And then the Stark commercial too, right? If I guess it was just a guy with a watch on a hairy arm, you'd be like, yeah, all right, I guess that's the watch to get. But
yeah, no, it was more the implication that the toaster's to help the wife at home make your breakfast or whatever. And again, you're absolutely right. I mean, it totally captures the era, but it just made me chuckle somewhat, and I'm sure that's intentional, right?
Yeah, the part that it was like, I think it actually says that Toastmaster commercial starts with "Stop burning your husband's toast," and I thought, like, hey, wait a second,
That's what I mean. Yeah, I wondered how you felt.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we could go from that being the norm to awkwardly laughing at it a few decades later. It's progress.
Yeah, who says we haven't progressed? Yeah, right. and then of course the other thing that I felt with the second episode, and we've talked about the splashes of red that come into this, obviously hinting, I'm guessing, Scarlet Witch, but they also mention communism, because that was a big thing as well from that, with the 60s era where that second one is set. And it's all very thematic and intentional. But I must admit, I thought their comic timing and the magic show and whatever was absolutely great, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought it was really enjoyable. Isn't the Hydra logo also red?
I think it might have been, yes. I don't know. I need to go back and watch it again, I feel. But yeah. But Pete, you're very quiet. Any more thoughts on this?
No, I think we've talked it through. I will say, yeah, the magic show is hilarious though. And I guess, okay, so I said no more thoughts, but here's some more thoughts. The other thing that I really liked about this, or the other thing that I was struck while watching it, was that I was like, oh man, Paul Bettany is like an A-list movie actor, and he's doing this TV show for Discovery or for Disney, right? And so I was like, wow, that's crazy. I wonder if they filmed it like a movie versus filming it like a TV show, and that's part of the reason that they were able to get Paul Bettany, because maybe they just filmed it like a super long movie instead of sort of TV scripts. They had the whole season blocked out, and it's going to go from there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. When you think about it, the whole thing with Paul Bettany, again, talk about kind of landing on your feet, because this whole thing has gone from one day's voiceover for the original Iron Man in 2008, doing the the voice of Jarvis, to that being expanded into more movies, to it actually becoming a separate character that okay, died in the second from last movie, but now has his own TV show. I mean, that's pretty awesome for an actor, I would say.
It's pretty good. It is pretty good.
I would love to see the evolution of his contract.
yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, we should be so lucky, but yeah,
it is really a really interesting question, because I mean, didn't they say that Fahey and crew like sat down and wrote out the entire Infinity War arc and then like filled it in? So I really wonder, were they like, yeah, who can we get that's a big star to voice Jarvis in like the third movie, but they'll also be interested in sticking around for, you know, appearances in a 20 movie arc. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's fair to say Kevin Feige's been very smart managing this entire thing, hasn't he? So, you know, credit where it's due there. But oh, by the way, also picking up on references, we often reference things that aren't necessarily Easter eggs or references to the universe it takes place in, but sometimes other stuff. And was it just me, or when they were saying what's in the box, were you thinking of Seven?
I always think of Seven when anyone says what's in the box.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Although that the mood there was pretty different than the Seven mood.
Very. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. We must have to include that there are spoilers for Seven in this book.
Well, we haven't said what it relates to, have we? But,
I'm going to blurt it out.
So, okay. Anything else you want to add, guys?
No, I don't think so. I think that I'm just excited to see where it goes, and that's a really fun thing. So I'm going to thank Disney Plus for making my lockdown just that little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they'll pay me for that?
And are you guys? So everybody's going to stick with it, and you're happy to talk about it as we go along, week for week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It'll be really fun to see how it unfolds.
Cool. All right. Well, listen, we'd like to hear from you guys. If you've got any feedback, questions, comments, please add them to the comments below on this page, or you can actually email us directly at lswotcast@gmail.com. So it's lswotcast@gmail.com. And you know, we'll respond to that. This is also going to go out on all good podcasting apps, so please do subscribe, drop us a like or a review, because that all helps. And please go back and, you know, check out our previous episodes. As I said, we cover Star Trek Picard, Star Trek Discovery, and Star Wars The Mandalorian, as well as a few specials on other films and shows. So please check that out at LSWOT Cast. So guys, if anybody wants to get in touch or find more of your work, where can they find you?
Well, if you go to ryanholloway.net, you can see some of my paintings, either commissioned or ones that are available for sale. And you can get in touch with me via the website.
And I am on Twitter at Too Many E's, TOOMANYEES. Barbara, do you want to shout out?
Sure. I'm on Twitter as B McMealy, BMCMELE.
Splendid. And oh, sorry.
No, I was going to throw to you. Take it.
Yeah,
oh yeah, I was going to say, if you want to see more of my work, obviously this channel that you're on now, I post reviews and unboxings of films and television shows on physical media, mainly Blu-ray and 4K. So if that's your thing, please subscribe and check out my work there. If you want to see any of my other work, I've got another YouTube channel called British Isles. That's EYLES, as in my last name. And there's some short films that I've written, produced and directed on there. So any feedback, welcome, please. And that just leaves me to thank the rest of the panel for tonight. I really appreciate it, guys. And thank you viewers out there for checking this out. I really appreciate it. If you find it entertaining, then please do share it around and spread the word. It really helps, and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll see you next time on...
Let's see what's out there.
Let's see what's out there.
Let's see what's out there.
Plus.
Home Media Minefield.
Have to
Bye,
have the
everyone.
plug. Bye.
Have a good evening. Bye bye.
You too. Bye, guys.